Hey everyone, Tuck here, and last week I said, hey, you may not want to watch Dragon Ball Z, which completely understandable. And I also said that I have a friend who usually plays video games instead of watch movies, or TV shows for that matter. And so, I've had to take it upon myself to tell you what Dragon Ball game is the best at retelling the Dragon Ball story just so you don't have to watch it. Now, the rules for this list. For starters, it's gotta be a console game. Two, it's gotta be current. So it can't be a game from the PlayStation 2 era. It's gotta be a game that you could buy on Steam right now. The Xbox store, PlayStation store, you gotta be able to purchase it now. And with all those rules aside, I want to start this list. What is the best Dragon Ball game that retells the story of Dragon Ball Z? Dragon Ball Xenoverse takes you through the story of Dragon Ball Z with some extra stuff sprinkled in, like the Battle of Gods movie and GT through DLC. The main objective is that the villains of the game are messing around with the timeline for their nefarious reasons, and you, the player, the creator character, have to stop them. Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 picks up where the last one leaves off and goes through the Dragon Ball Z story again, with Resurrection F now included in the time changes, but now with movie villains included in the story and DLC including Dragon Ball Super and some original stories. Dragon Ball FighterZ takes you on an original story where every character is up against Android 21, with 3 distinct story modes to play where either you are the heroes, the villains, or the androids. Super Dragon Ball Heroes World Mission is a card game based off the arcade machine where you go through stories about whatever's current in the Dragon Ball story at the time, or the original story about the evil Dark Empire and their conquest to ruin the Dragon Ball timeline so they can make a new one of their own, leaving you to be a time patroller and to go fight this threat and save the timeline. Dragon Ball Z Kakarot is an action RPG that takes you through the events of Dragon Ball Z, and through DLC you can go through the episodes of Bardock and Trunks' story, the Battle of Gods movie, Resurrection F movie, and the last battle in the OG Dragon Ball series, and through the end of Z. Dragon Ball The Breakers is a game that is hard to explain in my opinion. It's set in the Xenoverse universe, but the best way to explain it is that it's similar to Dead by Daylight, but I've never played that. So the game I can really associate more with is like the Friday the 13th game. That's just more how I see it. Some honorable mentions are Dragon Ball Legends and Dragon Ball Dokkan Battle. The reason these are honorable mentions is because I'm focusing on console games, and technically Dragon Ball Legends you can't play on Android. At least when I used to have an Android phone, you couldn't play Legends on it. So it doesn't work with my category of it has to be still playable. So yeah, and Dokkan Battle is that one can be played, but it's not really a console game, so it to me, like, it's an honorable mention. With all the games out of the way, let's now start ranking which one of these games is the best at retelling the Dragon Ball Z story. The worst one on this list is Dragon Ball FighterZ. Now, the game is not bad, quite on the contrary. If you're a competitive fighter, this is the game for you. But it has an original story to it, so it doesn't actually go through the story of Dragon Ball because it had its own original story. The Breakers. This doesn't really have a story mode. I've never played it. I really don't want to play it, actually. From what I've heard, it's not a good game, but the only reason I mark this closer to the top and not below FighterZ is because technically you can get the story retold by being set on maps with villains from those maps. For example, you could be on the planet Namek map and you could be against Frieza, and then he can summon Zarbon and Dodoria, so it's just a little closer than FighterZ, but it doesn't tell the story too much. It's just a little closer than FighterZ though. Super Dragon Ball Heroes, though I do personally like the game, I do recognize, no, it doesn't really tell a lot of the OG Dragon Ball story, because it really depends what you do. For example, since it's a card-based game, you don't have to follow the logic of what's going on in the story. For example, in this game, there's some arcade missions. It's a real long story, hard to get into. If you want to play it, I'd say do it now because it might actually get taken off the Steam store. I don't know if it's still on the Nintendo Switch store, but I'd say do that just to help understand what I'm trying to say. But if not, hey, no worries. You don't need to have all this extensive knowledge. What I will say, if it's trying to retell a story, I don't have to stick with the characters that were meant for that story. So let's just say the recruitment of the Tournament of Power, that was when Goku's going out trying to recruit everyone that got Frieza, Android 17. On my team, I could have Goku, Cell, Turles, Super Saiyan 4 Broly, and a Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta, Hirudegarn. Yeah, that didn't happen, but I'm not going to be penalized for it. So it can retell events, but it's pushing it a lot less than the Breakers though, because it can retell events for promotional stuff. Breakers, it just can, but I just don't trust it. But yeah, you know, Dragon Ball Heroes isn't really the best for retelling the Dragon Ball story. The Xenoverse series. Now, this one is actually a lot closer, and I knew a lot of people that actually got into Dragon Ball because of Xenoverse 2. The only catch is, due to the plot of the game being about fixing the timeline, it's not the best at telling you how the story goes, because it's all about fixing the story mode. So you see how stuff changes, and that's not the best for trying to tell the story. And the fact that the story is told through your create a character, it doesn't help a bunch, since it's your original character and then it goes off to an original story that settles problems with the story mode. And so it's good, and I will recognize a lot of people I know actually got into Dragon Ball because specifically Xenoverse 2 actually. Little funny side tangent though, when I got Xenoverse 2, I wasn't a big fan of Dragon Ball just yet. I had no idea Goku died in the battle with Raditz. I didn't know he did. So because of that, I was like, why'd they leave Goku? He's dead. I didn't know he was supposed to die. So that can kind of mess you up when the game's all about time changes. To a very casual person who's who only watched a little bit of Dragon Ball, it's not the best. And my number one pick for the Dragon Ball game that you can currently play right now that recounts the story of Dragon Ball Z to the best of its ability is Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. Who would have guessed? It's an action RPG game, but it does very much go through the story of Dragon Ball Z in depth. And that's the part I like. It goes in depth. You're going through the entirety of the story. They're not leaving a lot out, but they do add stuff though. Since it's an RPG, you're able to like go roam around and stuff. But I think that helps add to it, because there's certain characters you're going to meet up that never really appeared in Z. For example, I think you can meet up with Nam. You can see Nam from OG Dragon Ball, because he didn't appear in Z. Like, he would have no reason to be in Z, but he's there. And some little extra world building, I think that can help you a bunch. Just help get more enveloped in this world. The DLC does do a lot with it, because I know they have DLC with episode of Bardock and episode of Trunks, so you can get those bits of the story in there as well. The only catch is the Trunks one, it goes past the events of the Cell Saga into like, how did Trunks deal with Boo? Like, how did Trunks deal with Boo? And, you know, that's some little what if stuff, but I'm fine with that. Battle of God had some what if stuff, like how Vegeta got Super Saiyan God. A little iffy. Resurrection F, also iffy. But the end of Z, not a lot of games do, because you gotta make character models for adult Goten, a Pan model that's not from GT, just aged up characters, and then Goku's gi, and then Vegeta's clothes. So it's interesting that they actually did the end of Dragon Ball Z, but they add stuff to it, but the general meaning is still there. And surprisingly enough, they did the original Dragon Ball series, and they did the final battle of Goku and Piccolo Jr. I thought that's pretty interesting. That was pretty cool that they did that. And currently they are going through the events of Dragon Ball Daima. So I'd say if you really don't want to watch Dragon Ball Z, which by the way, I've noticed the comments on my last video, do watch Dragon Ball Z if you really want to get into Dragon Ball. I say watch Kai because it's faster to get through, and that's like more of what the story was intending to be. But if you just want more Dragon Ball Z, I'd say just watch Dragon Ball Z then. I'll never tell you not watch it, but you know, Kai's there, but you should watch Z. And yeah, Kakarot's a fun game. If you don't want to watch Dragon Ball, play Kakarot. That really goes deep into the story, and it's also pretty fun. And with that, I'll call it good. Tell me what you guys think. Do you think my choices were good? Do you think that I should have featured games that aren't currently available, like the PS2 era, PS3 era? Tell me if I should have that. Comment down below. And also comment if you agree with my decision. But until then, I'll see you next time. Tucker out.
Right.